It's time. But I don't think that fully excuses it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I did not enjoy reading that line. Hey team, it's Bethany from Bethany Books and welcome back to today's video. So today is going to be episode 3 of... And we are obviously doing Midnight Sun by Stephenie Meyer. Okay, so as you're aware, this has come out. I'm sure everyone is aware of that at this stage. But before I go into this, I just want to recognise that some of the research that I have done post reading of the original Twilight series from when I was a kid has educated me a lot on the damaging way that Stephenie Meyer has represented the people of the Quileute tribe. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Let me double check. Let me get this right. It's important. Quileutes. I think that's right. Quileutes tribe. So in the Twilight world, the werewolves represent the Quileute tribe, and ultimately the werewolves are seen as the baddies in the book. And not only is this damaging to people of that culture, but it's also damaging to just young children, especially young women, obviously the primary audience for this, who have read this series and recognise that being pale and sparkly, like so pale you're sparkly, was the vampire standard of beauty in a way. That's what made them so beautiful, and that's not okay. So just from the very get-go, I'm definitely going to be looking into this with a more critical eye now that I am like 10 years older since I originally read the series. I'm just going to quickly interrupt you and say I'm going to leave some links down below if you are wanting to or willing to, where you can donate towards helping the people of the Quileute tribe. There's a number of organisations and projects that they have on the go at the moment, so if you're interested, go have a peek at the links. So, Midnight Sun. This is book 5 in the Twilight saga, and it is a story told from Edward's perspective. It was published just a few days ago on August the 4th, 2020, so a very, very new release, but controversially, that word, a draft of it was released in 2008, I believe, so that's why Meyer kind of pulled it back and has just not wanted to release it for a long time. The hardcover is apparently 662 pages, but I have the soft cover, and it is a whopping, not the acknowledgements please, avoiding the last words, 756 words. So it is a brick. Genre, you're probably aware, this is a young adult paranormal fantasy romance. And I suppose I should also give like a real quick synopsis. So it's essentially, like I've said, Twilight from Edward's perspective, except apparently it takes on, what are the words? A decidedly dark twist. Meeting Bella is the most unnerving and intriguing aspect of Edward's life, ever in his life. And he has to essentially debate whether following the love of his life and encouraging that is the smart move, when it's also potentially the most dangerous move for Bella, the young woman that he loves. That's pretty much all you need to know, so let's do this thing. Hey team, so 57 pages in, which is like the tiniest amount. I do have to say from the very get-go, he does seem to be more of a interesting character than Bella was to read from, just because he is dealing with the like vampire-y side of things. So yes, so far, I mean, it's a strong start, but I've only licked the icing off the cake. Hello there, bookworms. It is obviously the next day, and reading update, I am 200 pages in, so that makes it about a quarter, and I have some thoughts, obviously. First thought being, I'm not as bored as I thought I would be. So in comparison, these 200 pages, we're at the same like point in the story as you are at the same quarter mark in Twilight. So like 100 pages in here, 200 pages in there, you can do the math. So I'm enjoying it a decent amount, but what I've noticed is how protective Edward is and how it's quite predatory feeling, and it's making me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like, you're seeing how obsessed he is with Bella, and I mean, it makes sense, I suppose, why he's doing what he's doing, but I don't think that fully excuses it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's making excuses for himself to go watch her sleep, and I mean, you know some of the things he does if you've read Twilight, but I can't help myself but feel like it's a little bit odd, because even though he himself is internally debating like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, he still does it, and therefore it's kind of excused and slightly romanticized, which honestly just doesn't feel quite right. So it's day 3 since picking up Midnight Sun, and honestly I feel like I've been reading this forever. I'm on to page 280. Let's see if I can stand you guys up. There's one line that Bella says about herself and her clumsiness that really made me stop and almost like recoil. So talking about her clumsiness, I'm absolutely ordinary, she explained. Well, except for the bad things like all the near-death experiences and being so clumsy that I'm almost disabled. Just wanted to put it out there. I don't really know. It's not going to affect my overall reading of the book because it has only happened once. But if it pops up again, I'll let you guys know. It makes me feel dirty. I don't know. I did not enjoy reading that line. On to page 281. Just checking in with yous, I'm up to page 531 and we are just hitting the part where the baseball is about to go down, if you know what I'm saying. About 200 and something pages to go. Let's see if I can do it tonight. Reading update, I've got about 100 pages left of this bad boy. Honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to being able to say I finished it. But just a note I wanted to make, there are 3 vampires, 2 of them male, 1 of them female, which become the main antagonists in the climax of the book. And the males are called by their names, but the female is not. It's just a note. I don't really know what I think about it. We know everybody's name. The woman's called Victoria, but she's never called Victoria. She's called that woman. It's just something. I was also really interested to read that Jasper is supposedly like completely covered with scars from his like crazy past. And in the movie, he doesn't seem to have a single scar on him. Just something. And it's just made me really curious to see like what Jasper's background would be. This is from Edward's perspective. I'd love like a little prequel from Jasper and all of his history and things he went on, because it's alluded that it was pretty dark for a while. Anyway, I'm gonna go shower and see if I can try finish this off. So I finished the book. Review time. First things first, here are some triggers. So, as you can imagine, it's vampire-y, so there is a lot of mention of blood. There's also this idea of a hunter seeing Bella as prey, so just be aware that in this case, a woman is eyed as a thing that a male character can possess and have. There's masochism, is that how you say it? Masochism? Yeah, masochism, in the sense that a character willingly wants to feel the pain. And Edward, the perspective that we're reading from, he has an ability where he can read minds, and some of the minds he reads are of murderers and rapists. So occasionally you see things from that kind of a mindset. Only glimpses, it's not heavy, but just putting it out there. It happens in small doses. And then in terms of my rating system, using my Powers system, sorry, I've got my notes here team, I gave the pace a 7 out of 10, the people an 8 out of 10, the originality a 7 out of 10, world building a 7 out of 10, my general enjoyment an 8 out of 10, the relationships a 9 out of 10, and the writing style an 8 out of 10, which altogether amounts to 4 stars. And then it's time for my general thoughts and notes. First of all, I feel like I've got to get out of the way the fact that this probably is slightly biased. Let me explain. I was 13 when I first read the Twilight series and I loved it. I am almost 100% sure that it was my first ever young adult book, my first book that had a kiss in it, the first time I was reading some paranormal fantasy, and so it has a very close little section in my reading heart. And for that reason, I don't think I was ever geared to dislike Midnight Sun. So with that being said, if you disliked Twilight, I don't think you should even bother reading Midnight Sun. That's the truth of it. Like, if you're curious, of course, do as you wish, but you're just probably setting yourself up to hate something, because it's very much the cheesy, sappy vampire romance that Twilight was. So right from the get-go, I'm talking about this book from a perspective where I knew I was probably going to love this going in. So in that case, I might be slightly biased, like I've said. Let's get into the thought side of it though. So as I've grown older, I have definitely become more in tune to jokes that are racist or homophobic, or I don't know what the word is, but like when they belittle people with learning or physical disabilities. I'm sure there's a term for that somewhere. Let me know if you know what word I'm talking about. And so there were 3 times when I was reading this book that something just hit me a little bit wrong. The first, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of this video, is how the Quileute people and the Quileute tribe are represented. Obviously, they are shunned to be othered, they are the werewolf side of things, and they are, for the majority of the series, seen as the bad people. Then there were 2 little things that prompted me to just stop and think to myself. The first you've seen in the reading vlog portion, if you've watched that, where essentially Bella's being clumsy and she says something about being retarded or something, and that just made me recoil a little bit. And then also, how do I say this without spoiling it? There is a section where there are 3 vampires, 2 male, 1 female, and whenever Edward is referring to the male vampires, he calls them by name, but whenever people are referring to the female vampire, she becomes that woman, not her name, which is Victoria, which obviously we know what her name is, and it's not used. I don't know Maya's reasoning behind that, but I did feel like it was a little bit, I guess, belittling of women. And it's just a point that I wanted to share with you. Another little negative, a little critique, I suppose, whilst we're in this vibe of things, is the pace was a little bit off for me. I gave it a 7, so not the worst, but like you've seen, it's massive. The ratio of the pace is the same. For example, by this I mean in Twilight, if you flip to halfway, what was happening in Twilight at halfway was happening in halfway of Midnight Sun. So like the ratio of the plot is spread out in the same proportions, but at times it did drag on. I made a little note saying 500 pages, kind of wishing we were coming to the big climax, because that's the thing. If you've read Twilight, you know what's happening in the plot, you know the main points on that timeline, and you're kind of waiting for that big thing at the end to happen. I do wonder, if you haven't read Twilight and you pick up Midnight Sun, what your reading experience would be like then. I imagine it would be more of a mystery, because like Edward, you'd be trying to figure out Bella. Edward can't figure out Bella's, he can't read her mind. So she's that mysterious figure, and I think the reader would find her as a mysterious figure as well. But reading Twilight prior to this really enhanced the experience in terms of you already know Bella's perspective on everything. So you are seeing things in like both eyes a lot of the time, especially if you had just done a Twilight reread. Like I personally had done a Twilight reread a couple of weeks ago. Link to the reading vlog if you're interested for that. So all of Bella's thoughts were still fresh in my mind. So there was a couple of hours worth of reading there between that 500 to 600 page mark where I was waiting and waiting and waiting, which honestly is the biggest reason why I think it dropped from 5 to 4 stars. As you would have noticed in my powers system, I rated the relationships 9, and I want to be pretty clear here. I don't rate the relationship between Twilight and Bella as being the 9 in this installment. I rate the relationship between Edward and his siblings as the 9. I thought it was so interesting. You see more of Alice, who has an ability to look into the future, read into the future, and it was so fascinating seeing how much of her ability and just herself is actually put into the Midnight Sun story, how much it influences Edward, as well as how much Carlisle and Esme and Emma and Jasper and Rosalie a little bit, but how much they influenced Edward. I thought it was fascinating turn of events. I thought Edward's perspective was a really cool one to read from, and I really enjoyed seeing his internal battle with himself as he's trying to figure out if he can love Bella even though he's such a monster in his own eyes. That's where the masochism comes in. It's like he wants to leave Bella alone, but he can't deal with that pain, but he's also like in pain physically when he's with her. So there's like a little bit of a cycle spiral going on there. So my opinion, is it worth the hype? If you're a Twilight fan, yes. I think it really is a really cool perspective. How many times can I say really? A lot, apparently. All right, let's get into the part where I respond to your responses. Yes, I'm in a different outfit. I had to wait 24 hours on my Instagram stories for you guys to respond. So the first comment is this person, and they're essentially saying they fell in love with Edward even more because they got to see his side of things a lot better. And honestly, I think that's what makes this book so interesting. It's almost like you read Twilight and you didn't know what you were missing out on, and when you stop to think about it, Twilight is nowhere near as complex because you've only got Bella's perspective, and all she's kind of dealing with in reality is, you know, pining, and okay, so she's hunted for a little bit, whereas Edward does have that whole moral dilemma. So 100% relate with this, to the point where I'm almost tempted to say that I think Midnight Sun is better than Twilight if it wasn't for how massive and long it is. Next up is this person. Sorry guys, I'm just going to put your Instagram handles down here instead of trying to pronounce them. They're talking about how they really needed a better editor, and I can understand this. Maybe not for the whole superfluous. I always doubt myself on how to say words. How the words are superfluous. I'm just going to say it wrong from here on out. I'm just going to own it. Superfluous and unnecessary. Honestly, I didn't 100% notice that. I'm not saying you're wrong at all. Just I didn't notice that. But I guess it links into the next comment, which is how it was repetitive. And that I can understand. Maybe I didn't pick up on the words themselves being unnecessary and repetitive, but the message of Edward at times, yeah, I can see that, because his whole thing is he wants to leave Bella but he can't, and so that is, I mean, repeated. So those are the only replies to my Instagram stories I got, which I can understand, it's a new book. Aside from those people just trolling you, putting random emojis and stuff, it's not the answer. But anyway, that's beside the point. If you guys are planning on picking up Midnight Sun or have read it yourself and have your own thoughts, please leave them down below. I'd love to engage in a conversation with you around that. And with all that being said, stay tuned for my next episode of What the Hype. Enjoy all the places you go in your own reading adventures, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.